So what I'd like to do is take your minds back to about 1997. This is the Labour Party's party political broadcast. Now, as you can see, I'll just leave this playing in the background. It was a different time. I've muted it because the song that's playing is, of course, D. Ream's Things Can Only Get Better. And this is the kind of cheesy, old world style that we used to have before Tony Blair took over. There is the man himself, and in fact, I'm going to skip forward a bit just so you can see how this ends. Someone's going to the poll, and they're voting, and it's Blair himself.
He's voting for himself.
Do it. Signed, Tony Blair. He doubtless, I mean, you would vote for yourself, wouldn't you? But anyway, so Labour won that, and won with a significant margin as well. For some reason, I can't go forward.
What about this one? Nope, that doesn't work.
They're not working. Right, okay. So this is on the BBC website. Look at that. BBC.co.uk. Politics 97. I love that a lot of the image links are just broken at this point. So this is from the old internet, right?
That.
So for any youngsters out there, this is what the internet used to look like.
Brings back memories.
Geocities pages and things like this. But this is a BBC report, as you can see. On the election. And
ask me, this is what the internet should still look like, frankly.
I can see why it doesn't.
Look what they took from us.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see why it doesn't still look like this. Because it is.
Because it's corporate, it's homogenized.
It is now.
It's been gay-opt.
It's been made slick and shiny, user-friendly. It used to be absolutely hideous. This isn't even an archive. This is just on the BBC website right now. The direct link is just to the BBC website.
Gorgeous.
It's amazing. But anyway, I'm gonna read out from this just because you can see the tenor of the reporting as well, right? As dawn broke over London, the Labour leader addressed a cheering crowd of Labour activists at the Royal Festival Hall. The British people have put their trust in us. It's a moving and humbling experience. We have been elected as New Labour, and we will govern as New Labour. And boy, didn't they just. For the Conservatives, the result is a disaster. A record 6 cabinet members have lost their seats. Michael Portillo, Malcolm Rifkind, William Waldegrave, Michael Forsyth, Tony Newton and Ian Lang. Brutal. It's half the cabinet just got slaughtered in this. John Major, who was the former Prime Minister at the time, said, Tony Blair inherits a country in extremely good economic shape. Can you even imagine having a country that was in extremely good economic shape?
Well, I was 1 when this happened.
Yeah.
So
we will have to regroup. To be in opposition as a party is an honourable way of life. We will look back with some pride at the changes we have made to our country in the last 18 years. So, as you can see, this is coming off 18 years of Thatcherism, and Britain was in a much better economic state than it is now. Just when it comes to sort of people's prospects and the way, the raw GDP was probably lower because we hadn't crammed in 15 million foreigners into, the tower blocks in London. But people felt like they had more money, right? People didn't feel like the future was going to die.
Well, I mean, I'm sure in real terms, GDP per capita would have been
possibly higher. I didn't even think to check, to be honest.
Potentially better.
But it's more the sense of the environment, because at the time you had a kind of social movement called Cool Britannia, where you've got like the Spice Girls and Oasis and Blur and, we're lots of cultural exports, and everyone felt quite confident for the future, which is what Tony Blair rode in on. Because John Major, stodgy, grey, conservative, he was the old way, right? But this is Cool Britannia. This is the future. We're building a better Britain here, folks.
Can get worse.
It
can only get better.
Can only get better, exactly. Definitionally so. Did you not hear the song, right? And notice that John Major's like, well, we'll look back with some pride. We'll regroup. We're going to be vigorous opposition. You can feel how genteel this is. No one's screeching that the other person's a racist yet, right?
John Major's still alive, isn't he? Bloody hell, he is, and he's 82 years old.
Yes. So
and
he's even more desaturated than he was when he was young.
That was yet
I don't remember last time I heard about John Major having any major complaints about where this country has gone since Blair.
Well, he was complaining that things are starting to become more right-wing.
Of course he was. The thing about the thing because of that always makes me wonder if things would have actually gone any different. If things would have gone a different way if Major had stayed in as Prime Minister, if the Conservatives hadn't had a major loss, or if
better if Major had lost in the 90s.
Yeah, or if we'd just be in the same place.
No, to be honest with you, there was a kind of prevailing zeitgeist that Tony Blair rode in on. We'd probably be in the same place.
I think the same.
Yeah, roughly.
Because although in the 90s, as you say, people weren't as crazy as they are now, all of these things took decades to build.
Well, the trends are still there. In fact, I'm going to read another quote from this article, right? Quote, Labour also made history in other ways, with the first Muslim MP and the first gay man to declare his homosexuality before being elected to Parliament.
Dun, dun, dun.
Isn't that hilarious? Like, yeah, we know that most of the Tory party is gay, but they declare it after. They get into
They kept it behind closed doors, at least.
But you can see
it was more tempting that way.
It's exactly the same rhetoric.
They did probably find a bit more of a thrill in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but 30 years ago, it's exactly the same rhetoric. They've made history with the first Muslim MP and the first openly gay MP being elected to Parliament. Isn't this just historic? Isn't this just the right side of history? See, so this is why Stellis is probably right. The same thing was happening then. It was just, the avalanche is rolling down the hill and growing bigger and bigger as it goes. The Tory party chairman, Brian Mawhinney, told the BBC that the British people had decided it was time for a change, and what a change it's been. In his victory speech, Tony Blair said they had a real sense of pride in creating a Labour Party capable of offering a vision of renewal that our country needs. I won't let you down. And my God, didn't they? Okay, I can't use that, can I? Right, so one of the things that we learned in 2009 is that the Labour Party decided they were going to throw open the borders. The era of mass migration begins in the early 2000s with Tony Blair's New Labour. And they did it specifically to make the country more multiculturalism and, quote, rub it in our faces. Andrew Neither, the former advisor to Tony Blair, Jack Straw, and David Blunkett said that the huge increase in migrants was partly due to a politically motivated attempt by ministers to radically change the country and rub the right's nose in diversity. The point, he says, I remember coming away from some discussions with a clear sense that the policy was intended, even if it wasn't its main purpose, to rub the right's nose in diversity and render their arguments out of date. Oh, well, that's great. I love having my nose rubbed in it by the newly elected government.
Are our arguments out of date or completely vindicated?
Well, no, but the thing is, it did render the sort of conservative arguments at the time, which were very weak, out of date. But the thing is, the amount of immigration that has happened has also rendered the Labour Party's own arguments out of date, as Morgoth pointed out.
Well, I mean, depending on which Labour minister that you were listening to, there was... in Douglas Murray's book, Strange Death of Europe, I've seen a lot of people posting about this recently because I'd forgotten that he mentioned this. There was that minister, I think, was she just in charge of immigration, Barbara Roche, who was one of the people to really help the Labour government new Labour government open the floodgates, where she had explicitly said that she felt more comfortable in a multicultural London.
Well, they definitely created a multicultural London.
But Carl and Harry, I think what is interesting here is that it's also the Tories right now who are echoing that sentiment.
Yeah.
So it's not just the Labour who had the same goals back in the past.
Oh, yeah.
They thought that it wasn't yet the time to come out.
Tony Blair captured the Labour Party with the installation of Cameron, right? So the Conservative Party. So the Tory Party had a choice. They could go into sort of based right-wingness or gay left-wingness, and they chose David Cameron, so gay left-wingness. And as you can see, like the world that they've created, I mean, it's just spectacular, isn't it? Like,
Ilford is basically Pakistan.
Yeah, this is the UK that they have manufactured, and this is a great summary of everything, right? You've got the old English guy trying to fix up the plaque of Sir Admiral Edward, whoever, I don't even know who that is, and coming out of the door is just some ghoulish foreign woman. Why is she even here? But you can see like the COVID managerial signs on the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, watch out for COVID. You know, the government is always watching. And the general sort of dilapidated state of the country.
And I love the replies that this one got, because I saw this one when it got posted. Like this guy here, just basically saying, one of my favourites you've posted in a while, like admiring it like it's a piece of artwork.
It is a piece of art.
Yeah, it kind of is.
It is. And again, like you can just go through this whole account just to be like, yeah, this is the country that they've created. And so the question is, well, what's happening now? The New Statesman, for example, asking, is Blairism still the future? Are the Blairites still the future? It's like, how could they be? They are the past. They are the people who have made the country as rubbish as it is. This is all a product of Tony Blair's complete capture and the kind of New Labour zeitgeist that swept through the country beginning in 1997 and progressing until now. Because, of course, the current Labour Party is exactly a product of that. And the thing is, as well, the New Labour, the Labour Party and this whole zeitgeist is going to crash in the same way the Tories did in 1997. Half a dozen cabinet members are going to lose their seats, just like in 1997, where half a dozen cabinet members lost their seats. The wheels are coming off of this thing. The zeitgeist of the country has shifted. It's like, right, okay, the potential energy that was expended in the Labour government, the New Labour government, has run out. And so now they are at the end of their tether. They're like, right, we've done all of the same things over and over and over and over, and it's producing absolutely atrocious results. It is producing a country that is dilapidated, that is impoverished, that people are fleeing and have a kind of general like tone of disgust towards. Because I mean, if you read through this, like the general tone was one of just quiet sort of nobility from the Conservatives, and everyone was just kind of like, yeah, you know, Britain's quite good, we're quite happy, everything's functioning relatively well, and now the country is just disgusting and filled with strangers, and everyone can see it. And so they're like, well, are they still the future? No, you're the people who created this terrible state of affairs, uncontested. There's no one else that you can pin this on, in fact. So the question is, how quickly can you be wiped out and gotten rid of and relegated to the dustbin of history? And so you then have, where are we? So the issue that they have is that they can see that the wheels are coming off this completely, right? And this is a Labour MP, and sorry for the bad language, but I'm going to play this from the newsagents, where they are desperately struggling to try and find a reason as to why things are terrible.
I'm going to put it bluntly, crudely. Are things shit?
Yeah, I think lots of things are pretty shit, and it's why you need a government with the determination to unshitify it as quickly and as radically as possible. And look, if you talk about from a polling perspective, I know what the consequences will be if we can't start to show real progress on this in the next few years. Nigel Farage could be running this country, and think about the devastating consequences of that man running this country, breaking more things than he fixes. But that's going to happen unless we can start to get more money into the pay packets of working people. We can stop those boats crossing the channel, or significantly get the numbers down. When people go and smash up their local co-op or ATM, nothing seems to happen. We need to fix that problem and the petty crime problem. People feel like their local communities are looking worse, looking more run down than they used to, and whenever you interact with a public service, it doesn't seem to work.
So
we need to show progress on those issues,
and that's how parties in opposition normally speak, isn't it? When you don't have the power,
yeah.
But you do have the power now. Labour does have the power. So, I mean, has this year been squandered?
So I'm going to pause it there, just because that I think summarises exactly the problem. Right?
The narrative is we haven't been Blairite enough.
Well, I don't even know if that's even the narrative. Because Blairism is the waters in which they swim, right? So I don't even think they can name exactly what the issue is. But look at it, it's like everything is terrible and we need to make it unterrible as quickly as possible. But all we can do are the same things that have made it terrible over and over and over. And we have no plan. We don't know what we're going to do. And I mean, look how like nervous and out of sorts this guy sounds. And Emily Maitlis is like, well, hang on, you sound like a party in opposition. It's like, yeah, because you kind of are in opposition, because the machine of Blairism, all the quangos, all the extra governmental and bureaucratic organs that were set up, yeah, they're all moving forward. And Keir Starmer's been like, hang on, we can't keep doing this. It's like, sorry, this is the plan. And so now they've got to be like, all right, we need to stop all this. We need to make a change of some sort, but they don't have anything they can change because they're completely constrained within their own paradigm. And so what can they do? What are their options? They don't have any options, actually. And I think this is why they're posting things like this. I mean, like again, these are the sort of old guard from the Blair era. John Soper was thrilled when Sunak was out, as if Sunak was substantively different to Keir Starmer in any way, shape or form. But now, Oh, the political ineptitude and mismanagement of this is epic. The Whip's office, Downing Street, DWP should all be hanging their heads in shame. Truly disastrous, Keir Starmer, because they just can't do anything. They're committed to the moral and political paradigm of Blairism, which is radical managerial liberalism. And it's got to the point where, like, here you have Rachel Reeves crying in the Parliament. Look at that tear rolling down her face. When Keir Starmer is trying to argue about his benefits cuts or something, some nonsense. Again, all problems that were created by Tony Blair's government, exacerbated by the Blairite Conservatives, and inherited by Starmer.
Are you sure this is why she's crying? Don't you think she's looking at her messiah?
No. That
just look like she's got like some unrequited love for Keir Starmer going on here.
I'm not.
No, what this is desperation in the Starmer bunker, right? Because they have a very specific set of political tools to use.
What have you done, Keir?
And well, no, the thing is as well, you got to remember these people are true believers, right? Yeah. These people are younger than Tony Blair. They grew up in the shadow of Tony Blair, and they looked up and were like, yes, we're going to create the perfect Britain. This is the New Britain project. We're all in on this. We believe in the unlimited, unfettered reign of human rights. We can bring this into existence. And it's all crumbling in front of their eyes. And so in Parliament, she's looking at Keir Starmer, we were going to do it, Keir. We were going to make the utopia. And the tear rolls down her eyes, but there's nothing they can do. And so what comes next? Well, not Nigel Farage. He will be the next Prime Minister, I think. But even he understands that he is actually containment for the Blairite project. Right? Even he is, in his most honest moments, an avowed anti-racist. Right? Nigel Farage has made it clear over and over and over, he actually completely supports the international liberal project. He actually is one of those people who says, no, I will not have any truck with those, far right types. And he gets offended. He's mortally wounded when he's not treated as part of polite society and called a racist. He hates it, right? I mean, this is a direct quote from him. Farage hopes that young men will turn to him to give them a voice, because if you don't, wait till what comes after me. Those who tried to demonize me could be in for a terrible shock once I'm gone. That's why we say we believe that we are the last chance to restore confidence in the democratic system to change things. Well, what does he mean when he says the democratic system? Because it's not like elections are going to stop. We'll still be voting for people. It just won't be a liberal democracy. It won't be a Blairite democracy. It'll be a democracy voting for people who are further to the right than Farage. Because almost everyone in the country is actually further than the right to Farage. So this is just the latest thing that Restore Britain have posted. And
I like this.
Oh yeah, it's very good. It's very good. But you can see how this is in direct opposition to the Blairite project. Right? No, the human rights of the criminal come first in the human rights lawyers Blairite project. No, not anymore. Right? The traditional, and notice how ethnically particular this is. An Englishman's home is his castle. Yeah, I don't care what the opinions are in Spain or in Holland or whatever, but in England, if someone breaks into your house, I'm going to effing kill you, right? That was the traditional historic opinion of the average Englishman, and still is.
I mean, one of the big benefits of abolishing things like the use of reasonable force to defend yourself from a managerial standpoint is the fact that, if you're not able to defend yourself legally, if I've made it illegal for you to defend yourself, well, I guess you can only come to me, the state, with now a much more rigorously enforced monopoly on violence. So you're going to have to let me into your home to oversee and make sure that you're safe constantly.
Correct. And if people are allowed to take this kind of executive action in defense of their own homes, then you can see how the state's power wanes. I don't care what the state has to say. When someone breaks in, I'm going to kill them.
If you've got control of something in your own personal or private life, that's one less place where the managerial state can shove its nose.
Exactly, and it's also the telos of the paradigm of human rights to try and essentially make it so no one is really a criminal. Right? Because even the criminals have human rights. They are just the victims of society. This is why Keir Starmer let out a bunch of, murderers and thieves.
The criminals will have a backstory, Carl.
Exactly.
Haven't you watched Aladdin?
Exactly. They're not really responsible for their own agency, and therefore, actually, the real people who are the problem are the people who support the system. The tax-paying, law-abiding citizen is actually really kind of responsible for the criminal themselves. So this is why all of these people are, in fact, more important than you are. And as you can see, I mean, Farage would never sign off on this, right? He would never sign off on this. This is way too based. And then the next thing is, of course, restores net negative immigration, as in immigration has to go down because we need to get some of these bloody people out of our country, right? That's what this is about. This is much, much, much more nativist. And the businesses can feel that it's coming, right? This is from Bloomberg the other day. The golden age for employers is ending. Because, of course, and I love to point this out, if you're a socialist, if you're a left-winger, you are the tool of the capitalist because you're a moron, right? They knew, and I'm just going to quote a length from this, actually, just so I can rub it in your faces, right? For as long as most of us can remember, business has been able to call on a ready supply of foreign workers, right? So all of those mass immigration lefties, this is what this has been doing. Right? I know you thought you were rubbing it in the right's nose, but you were also reinforcing international capital. Am I wrong?
No.
Is there literally anything else to object to there? No. It's precisely what you're doing.
They knew this. I think even Bernie Sanders knows this.
They did, but then they got intersectionalized.
Yeah.
And suddenly it was like, oh, but more racism.
There is the very famous clip of Bernie Sanders getting pushed off of his own stage by insane intersectionalists.
That was in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
I remember it well.
And he was too much of a coward to stand up for himself. Because by
a little cuck position.
Yeah, by his own moral compass, well, it was only right for him to step aside and let these people take charge, right?
Exactly. Anyway,
Don't do this.
I'm going to read. I'm going to read from this because you'll see that the tide is turning. Right. One result has been an astonishing demographic transformation. 16% of the British population, 20% of the Swedish population, 19% of the German population, and 14% of the US population were born abroad. This golden age for employers is coming to an end. Popular discontent with mass immigration is rising, anti-immigrant parties are flourishing, and mainstream parties are finally taking note. In Britain, for example, 67% of people say that immigration is too high. The anti-immigrant Reform Party is well ahead in the polls. Donald Trump is not the only leader who's clamping down on immigration. Mark Carney in Canada has imposed a temporary cap on foreign workers and international students. Britain's Keir Starmer has spoken about the danger of Britain turning into a nation of strangers. He also said, and I think this is the more important one, that it done incalculable damage to the country, which it has. We are witnessing a paradigm shift when it comes to mass immigration rather than a temporary change. It is difficult to accept the old promise that diversity is always a strength when you are confronted with grooming scandals in Britain's immigrant-heavy northern towns or gang wars in Swedish suburbs. Remember that the restrictionist regime the US put into place in 1924 remained in operation until 1965, despite a system of mass production based on manual labour and a generally buoyant economy. Companies may expect the consequences of the paradigm shift sooner rather than they expect. In April, net migration in the US slowed down to an annualized rate of 600,000 from 4 million in 2023. That's crazy. The flow of illegal immigrants across the border has trickled under Joe Biden, under Trump from the millions it was under Joe Biden. Net migration in Britain halved last year and fell by an even larger percentage in New Zealand. So how should companies cope? Well, two strategies strike me as essential. And this is where the genuinely international and like just vampiric perspective of business comes out, right? First, they need to start treating the supply chain of talent with the same thoroughness as they treat the supply chain of materials and parts. Why was this not always on the table? As something that needs to be carefully planned and constantly repaired. Domestic supply chains, he goes on, but he then says, tap into the neglected pool of talent in working class communities by sponsoring charter schools, endowing university scholarships, or spotting and then sponsoring talented students. Like, you're going to have to rely on your own people in the countries. That's what this comes down to. You won't have an unlimited supply of foreign workers that you can exploit against the native population. This is going to come to an end.
It's interesting to contrast this with that Times article by William Hague from the other year, where he was making the argument that the age of migration was only just beginning.
Yes.
Which is basically, he was saying it for the exact same reasons that this guy is saying that business would want it.
Yes, but this guy is honestly taking a more clear-eyed view on things. So no, the era is coming to an end. William Hague, again, being a man of the Blairite era, being marinated in that political environment, is like, no, we need this for the economy. Look, you don't understand, right? This isn't even about the economy anymore. This is not about the goddamn economy. Right? This is about the culture. This is about the country. This is about the future we're leaving to our children. And you've got some people who are starting to see it, right?
Seething paddies like McTurnan.
But formerly Tony Blair's political secretary.
This is true.
So part of the Blairite era attempt to rub diversity into our faces.
Isn't he the man who wrote that the concept of the ethnically
We
English
will get to that. We'll get to it. So he is panicking because he can see that on the right there is a new movement that understands that identity actually is important, and what an ethnic identity is exclusionary to other ethnic identities, because of course are defined in opposition to one another. And so he's fuming, freaking out. And there we have it. Rishi Sunak is not English. Yeah, obviously. Rishi Sunak is Indian, because Matt Goodwin went on The Spectator and talked to Michael Gove and just said, well, Englishness, being English is an inherited ethnic identity, and it's not just something you can switch into.
I love the little bit he finishes with there. So, also, according to this blood and soil definition, nor are most Londoners, myself included. Coming
Correct.
from John McTernan, who I'm sure you've got it somewhere.
I do have it.
Has pointed out that he's Irish.
Yeah.
He's from London, but he's never English. He's Irish. But if that means that, okay, so your Irish ethnicity can carry over no matter where you're born, what further implications can we draw from this?
I mean, there are loads, to be honest. Which one in particular are you thinking?
Well, I was mainly just thinking a complete contradiction of his idea that ethnicity in general is an evil concept.
Well, I mean, where he says here, races and ethnicities don't exist.
Yeah, they don't
except
exist.
I'm Irish and I'm not English. Well, what he's doing there is saying, for you, races and ethnicities don't exist. For me, they absolutely do. So the English have no claim to England. I, a Londoner, an Irishman, absolutely does.
I think the main takeaway from this is that people like McTernan are absolutely filled to the brim with ethnic and historic hatred for the English and want to enact some kind of revenge on it because of his ancestors' experiences with the English, despite the fact that there are still plenty of excellent and patriotic Irish people out there. Like I pointed out, there's the contrast between somebody like McTernan, who is an Irishman born in England, or Morrissey, an Irishman born in England. There are different types.
Absolutely, but the point being, as the thing he says here, the concept of ethnic English is truly evil. Well, truly evil to what? You know, truly evil to the English people having a homeland?
Categorically evil. He means.
Yeah, but he
ontologically.
He doesn't mean categorically evil, because it would have to then follow that his own ethnicity was also evil, right? Because it'd be the category of ethnicities that is evil. But he's not saying that, right? What he's trying to do is philosophically and conceptually dismantle your attachment to the country itself, to your own ethnicity, to your own group, to ensure that what he is doing is opening up a sort of a free land, a frontier that can be exploited. That's what he's doing. And so he knows that the concept of ethnic English is truly evil to that project. Remember, he was a Tony Blair advisor during the era where they were rubbing it in our faces because they wanted to render our arguments out of date. And the thing that renders his argument out of date is the English saying, well, hang on a second, we are a collective entity and this land is our land, not your land.
Do we know why he was giving advice to Tony Blair about? Because
he was a strategic advisor.
Okay.
But I don't know why he's like this. I mean,
was Blair who signed the Good Friday Agreement?
I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Okay, we'll check.
But
I believe it was from 2005 to 2007. Perhaps you can fact check me on that. But if so, I think that's after the Good Friday Agreement.
Yeah. But the point is that the entire point of this was to make sure that the English are essentially dispossessed of their own ancestral land.
Well, and let's remember as well, McTernan is the same man who, in an interview with GB News last year during the controversy with the farmers, said that we should do to the farmers what Thatcher did to the miners.
Oh, that would be
so. In more ways than simply this, just trying to deny you your idea of Englishness, he is trying to promote ideas that will truly destroy this country and destroy those people who are still tied to the land.
Yes, because his entire project was to make this a multicultural civilization. And you can't do that if people feel possessive over the country. If they're like, well, now, we're English and this is England. This belongs to us. It doesn't belong to a bunch of foreigners. We're not just going to give it up. And so this is why Nigel Farage is like, look, you know, what comes after me? Nigel Farage is not concerned about demographics. He has said this. He's not concerned about this. This is not something that's in his mind. However, it is something that is in the mind of Restore. And so he understands that the end of the liberal Anywhere International man is coming to an end. Nigel Farage is their last gasp, because they had this kind of tone where it's like we're the new men, the new feminist men from the Labour era, and then on the other side you've got the men behaving badly, and Nigel Farage is the men behaving badly coming up to try and save the failing paradigm. And you know what? No, the failing paradigm has to die, because the people who created the paradigm themselves were just evil and wanted to steal your birthright from you. And they can all feel that this is coming to an end.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.